What if I told you that some of Hollywood's most admired black actors were living double lives carefully crafted to protect careers built on image and illusion? Behind the charm, fame, and picture-perfect relationships, there were secret affairs that could have destroyed everything if exposed. In a time when being true to yourself could end a career overnight, many went to great lengths to keep the truth buried. Were they protecting their privacy or hiding in plain sight to survive an unforgiving industry? Here are 10 black actors who tried to hide their secret gay affairs. 10. Sidney Poitier. Sidney Poitier wasn't just a movie star, he was a symbol of grace, dignity, and quiet strength in an era that refused to see black men as equals. But behind that polished charm and unshakable calm, whispers followed him through Hollywood's golden years. People didn't just admire his acting, they wondered about his private life, a life he kept carefully locked away from the public eye. Back then, the industry wasn't kind to anyone who broke its unspoken rules. A rumor could ruin your career overnight, and Sidney knew it. He played his public role perfectly, the trailblazer, the family man, the respectable figure that Hollywood wanted him to be. Yet, those closest to him claimed there was always another side, one that was deeply private, protective, and almost too careful about who he trusted. Many believed Sidney's close friendships with certain men in the industry weren't just casual. Some said his long absences from public events, his quiet life between films, and his refusal to discuss his personal affairs were all ways to keep something hidden. It wasn't about shame, it was about survival in a world that would never have accepted the truth. Whether the rumors were true or not, one thing's certain. Sidney Poitier lived with a kind of restraint that very few stars could manage. His silence spoke louder than words, and his control over his image was unmatched. He built a career on integrity, and he guarded his private life with the same discipline. Even after his passing, those whispers still linger. Hollywood remembers him as the man who broke barriers, but there will always be curiosity about what he sacrificed to protect that image. Some say he lived 2 lives, one for the world and one for himself. 9. Johnny Gill. Johnny Gill's voice could melt hearts, soulful, rich, and smooth enough to make anyone stop and listen. But behind the success, the R&B singer became trapped in a story that refused to fade. For years, the rumor linking him to Eddie Murphy followed him everywhere, shadowing every hit song, every interview, every red carpet appearance. It all started with their close friendship, too close, according to some. The two were often seen together, laughing, traveling, and supporting each other through personal struggles. But in the gossip-fueled world of celebrity culture, friendship wasn't enough of an explanation. The tabloids wanted drama, and they got it. Stories started circulating about Johnny being more than just a friend to Eddie, and soon, those whispers turned into headlines. Johnny tried to clear his name, calling the rumors hurtful and ridiculous. But the harder he pushed back, the louder the speculation grew. It became part of his image, the unspoken question hanging over his career. Hollywood loves a mystery, and Johnny Gill became one. Even his relationships with women were analyzed, dissected, and doubted. For someone as talented as Johnny, it was a cruel distraction. His music should have been the only thing people cared about, yet the media seemed obsessed with his private life. Still, he kept performing, kept writing, kept showing up, but with a new kind of caution in his smile. Today, that old rumor still lingers like a ghost. Some fans believe it was all made up. Others think it was a secret that never needed to be confirmed. Either way, Johnny Gill's story became another example of how fame can twist something as simple as friendship into a scandal. He may have sung about love for decades, but when it came to his own life, he chose silence, a silence that spoke volumes. 8. Tracy Morgan. Tracy Morgan has always been known for his wild humor, unpredictable energy, and no-filter comedy. He could make an audience roar with laughter one second and leave them speechless the next. But behind the jokes and outrageous punchlines, there was something he never wanted anyone to see: vulnerability, the kind that made him build walls out of laughter. In the early days of his career, Tracy often joked about relationships, masculinity, and what it meant to be a real man. But some fans and fellow comedians noticed how defensive he became whenever talk of sexuality came up. He made off-color jokes that felt more like self-protection than comedy, almost as if he was daring people not to question him. That reaction only fueled more curiosity. Hollywood insiders whispered that Tracy's over-the-top behavior was a mask, a way to keep people from looking too closely. He grew up in a world where being vulnerable wasn't an option, especially for a black man trying to make it in comedy. Any hint of softness could be used against him, so he did what he did best. He turned his pain into a punchline. Over the years, fans have seen glimpses of his softer side. Through heartbreak, accidents, and near-death experiences, Tracy has shown that there's more to him than the outrageous comic on stage. Still, the rumors about hidden affairs and secret relationships have never fully gone away. They became part of his mythology, the clown who might have been crying behind the curtain. Maybe the truth is simpler than the stories make it. Maybe Tracy's secret wasn't about who he loved, but how scared he was to show his real self. In a business that feeds on image, his biggest act may have been convincing the world that laughter was all he had. 7. Will Smith. Will Smith has been one of Hollywood's biggest names for decades, charming, charismatic, and always camera-ready. But for just as long, whispers about his private life have followed him like a shadow. People didn't just love his movies. They wanted to understand his marriage, his relationships, and the strange rumors that seemed to surface every few years. The talk started back in the 90s, when his sudden rise from sitcom star to global icon seemed too smooth to be real. Hollywood gossip pages began hinting at a double life, suggesting that Will and Jada's marriage wasn't as simple as it looked. The couple's openness about having an unconventional relationship only added more fuel to the fire. Soon, fans began speculating about secret affairs, same-sex encounters, and private agreements behind closed doors. Through it all, Will smiled calm, confident, untouchable. He joked about rumors, turned interviews into performances, and shifted focus back to his work. But every time the topic resurfaced, his reaction seemed just a little too polished, a little too rehearsed, as if he had practiced that calm 1,000 times. Some say the real Will Smith hides behind his fame, protecting a truth that only a handful of people really know. Whether it's about his marriage, his sexuality, or his reputation, he's mastered the art of staying mysterious. Even his emotional breakdowns, like the infamous Oscars moment, made fans wonder if the pressure of maintaining that perfect image had finally cracked something inside him. No matter how much he's accomplished, the rumors refuse to fade. Will Smith remains the man everyone thinks they know, but no one truly does. He's played countless roles in front of the camera, and maybe the one role he's played best is himself. 6. Tevin Campbell. In the early 90s, Tevin Campbell was every teenager's dream. That smooth, angelic voice and shy charm made him one of the brightest young stars in R&B. His hits filled radio stations, his posters hung on bedroom walls, and everyone believed he was destined for a long, legendary career. But behind the music, there was a secret that nearly silenced it all. From the start, the industry labeled Tevin as different, too soft-spoken, too private, too polished for a world that celebrated loud confidence and macho energy. Whispers about his sexuality began when he was still a teenager, and in those days, such talk could destroy a young career before it even began. Tevin stayed quiet, dodging questions and focusing on his music, but the rumors only grew louder. By the time he reached adulthood, the once beloved prodigy had faded from the spotlight. Record labels lost interest, fans moved on, and tabloids started framing his silence as confirmation. For years, Tevin disappeared completely, living far from the fame that once consumed him. But in recent years, he returned stronger not just as a singer, but as someone who no longer cared what people thought. He spoke openly about being gay, not as a confession, but as liberation. The world that once judged him was finally ready to listen without cruelty. And for Tevin, that honesty was its own kind of victory. His voice, still as pure as ever, became more than music, it became a symbol of courage. Tevin Campbell's story isn't just about hidden love or Hollywood secrets. It's about how fear can steal your spotlight and how truth can bring it back. He may have spent years hiding behind his songs, but in the end, he found the strength to sing as his true self. 5. Queen Latifah. Queen Latifah has always been larger than life, confident, fierce, and unapologetically bold. From her days as a rapper, challenging the industry's double standards, to her rise as an award-winning actress, she's never played by anyone's rules. But there's one part of her life she guarded more tightly than any career move: her relationships. For decades, rumors swirled about Queen Latifah's sexuality. She was often seen with the same woman at public events, vacationing together, living together, yet she never confirmed or denied a thing. Whenever reporters tried to dig, she smiled politely and changed the subject. It wasn't fear, it was control. She decided early on that her private life wasn't for public consumption. Hollywood has a way of punishing women who don't fit its mold, especially black women who dare to live on their own terms. Queen Latifah understood that. By staying silent, she protected not just herself, but her brand, a brand built on power and independence. People could speculate all they wanted. She stayed focused on her craft, her family, and her happiness. Over the years, though, her silence spoke volumes. When she publicly thanked her longtime partner during an award speech, fans finally felt the quiet acknowledgement they had waited for. It wasn't an announcement. It was a soft, graceful truth that needed no explanation. Queen Latifah's story proves that strength doesn't always come from shouting your truth. Sometimes it comes from living it quietly, without apology. She didn't need to hide, she simply refused to let the world define her story. In an industry obsessed with labels, she became the rare star who didn't need one at all. 4. Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry built an empire from scratch. From homeless beginnings to billionaire status, he turned pain into purpose and built a media kingdom on his own terms. But while the world knows every detail about his success story, his personal life remains wrapped in mystery. For years, fans have speculated about the man behind Madea, a man who plays strong characters, writes about faith and family, yet avoids revealing anything about his real relationships. Rumors about Tyler's sexuality have followed him since his earliest plays. Some say his sensitive writing and comfort with portraying female roles sparked gossip. Others think it was his quiet lifestyle, no scandals, no drama, no public dating, that made people curious. Whatever the reason, the more he avoided the subject, the louder the rumors grew. Tyler has addressed the whispers indirectly, saying he values privacy above all else. He's never been one to overshare, and that's part of his strength. In Hollywood, where every move is publicized, his silence became his shield. Still, many believe that silence hides more than just a desire for peace, that it protects a side of him the world might not fully understand or accept. What makes Tyler's story so fascinating is how calm he's remained through it all. No angry interviews, no dramatic denials, just quiet confidence. He keeps creating, keeps winning, and keeps his private life private. That alone drives people wild with curiosity. Maybe the truth isn't scandalous at all. Maybe it's just that Tyler Perry refuses to let fame strip him of his freedom. Whatever the case, he's mastered something few stars ever do: total control over his story. In a world that demands transparency, he built power from mystery. 3. Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy was the king of comedy in the 80s and 90s, a superstar with quick wit, charm, and that signature laugh everyone recognized. But at the peak of his fame, one late-night incident changed how the world looked at him forever. In the summer of 1997, Eddie was pulled over in Los Angeles while driving with a transgender woman in his car. Within hours, tabloids exploded with headlines, turning his private life into public humiliation. Eddie insisted it was all a misunderstanding, that he was simply offering someone a ride. But by then, the damage was done. The story spread like wildfire, and suddenly, the biggest name in comedy was facing whispers that refused to die. Every interview, every red carpet appearance after that came with silent judgment from the crowd. Hollywood, known for its fake smiles, acted as though nothing happened, but everyone remembered. He doubled down on his image afterward, diving into family movies and focusing on wholesome roles. It was almost like he wanted the world to forget that night ever happened. But in the process, he built a wall between his public persona and his private reality. People close to him claimed Eddie became more guarded, more aware of how fragile his image really was. For years, the scandal stayed buried, whispered about, but never truly addressed. Yet, it still stands as one of those Hollywood moments everyone knows, but no one talks about. Whether it was a simple act of kindness or a slip that revealed more than intended, it became part of his story forever. Eddie Murphy may have laughed his way through fame, but behind that laughter was a man who learned just how dangerous a secret could be in Hollywood's unforgiving spotlight. 2. Rock Hudson's shadow. Before Hollywood learned how to whisper, Rock Hudson taught it how to hide. Though not a black actor himself, his story cast a long shadow over those who came after him, especially black men trying to build their place in an industry already stacked against them. Rock's carefully hidden truth about his sexuality became both a warning and a weapon for generations of actors who followed, forcing many to live in fear of the same exposure. For black stars in particular, the stakes were even higher. They weren't just battling prejudice in Hollywood, they were also fighting stereotypes about masculinity and strength. To be seen as soft or different could end a career before it began. So, when the whispers about Rock Hudson's private life surfaced in the 50s and exploded after his death, it sent shockwaves across the industry. Behind the glamour, many talented black actors took notes. They watched how the studio system turned on one of its brightest stars and learned the painful truth authenticity could be dangerous. So they built walls, stayed silent, and crafted carefully controlled public images that hid who they really were. You could see Rock's influence in how Black Hollywood handled rumors afterward. The fear of scandal shaped everything: interviews, friendships, even who people were seen with in public. That culture of silence became a kind of unspoken survival rule. And though times have changed, that shadow still lingers today. Rock Hudson's secret became more than a personal tragedy. It became a quiet lesson about what could happen when truth and fame collide. For many black actors, it wasn't just about hiding love. It was about holding on to their careers in a world that demanded lies. 1. Luther Vandross. Luther Vandross didn't just sing love songs, he lived inside them. His voice carried emotion so pure it could break your heart, yet behind every romantic lyric was a truth he never spoke. For decades, Luther ruled R&B, winning awards and filling arenas, but when it came to his personal life, he built walls higher than his high notes. Fans adored his passion and vulnerability, but few realized how much of that emotion came from loneliness. Rumors about his sexuality began early in his career, quietly passed around, but never confirmed. Luther never denied or admitted anything, he simply refused to talk about it. In interviews, he'd smile, deflect, and move on. That silence became his armor and his burden. The truth is, the industry wasn't ready. A gay black man in R&B risked not just judgment, but total exile. Record labels wanted fantasies they could sell, not realities that made people uncomfortable. Luther knew that. So he let his music speak the words he couldn't. Every love song became a secret message. Every heartbreak lyric a reflection of the life he couldn't live out loud. Those who worked closely with him described him as gentle but guarded, a man who longed for connection but feared exposure. Even in his final years, he kept that part of himself tucked away, never confirming what so many already believed. But his voice told the story anyway. Luther Vandross's legacy isn't defined by what he hid, it's defined by what he gave the world despite it. He may have loved in silence, but his music spoke for millions who felt they couldn't. Behind the spotlight and the fame stood a man who turned his deepest secret into timeless art. These black actors didn't just perform for the cameras, they performed for survival. In a world that worshipped their talent, but feared their truth, love became something dangerous to protect, not something to celebrate. Every smile, every red carpet appearance, every denial was part of a script they never wrote but had to follow. Maybe the real scandal isn't who they loved, but why they had to hide it. How many more stories like these are still buried beneath fame, fear, and perfectly crafted lies? If you want to uncover more hidden truths Hollywood never wanted you to see, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications, because the next story will make you question everything you thought you knew about your favorite stars. 11. Paul Winfield. Paul Winfield carved his name in Hollywood history with unforgettable roles in Sounder and A Hero Ain't Nothing But a Sandwich. He was the kind of actor who could bring raw emotion to the screen, earning respect and admiration from critics and fans alike. Yet behind this celebrated career was a personal truth he could never share publicly. Paul was gay, but he kept that part of himself carefully hidden. The times were cruel, and Hollywood was a place where being openly gay could mean career suicide, especially for a black actor who already faced barriers and fewer opportunities. Privately, Paul lived in a long-term relationship that lasted for more than 20 years, showing that he found love even while hiding it from the public. Friends and close colleagues knew his truth, but he never spoke of it in interviews, on red carpets, or public appearances. Instead, he let his work define him, while his private happiness remained locked away from the spotlight. When Paul died in 2004, the revelation of his sexuality finally became public. His story reveals both the resilience and the pain of living in silence, balancing love and secrecy in a world that was never ready to accept him. Paul Winfield's legacy today reminds us how many great stars carried their truth quietly until the end. 10. Howard Rollins. Howard Rollins was a rising star whose performances in Ragtime and In the Heat of the Night made audiences believe he was destined for greatness. He had charisma, undeniable talent, and the kind of screen presence that made casting directors take notice. But as bright as his future seemed, Howard lived with a secret that he could never share. He was gay, and during the 1980s and 1990s, being open about that truth would have ended his career instantly. The Hollywood system was unforgiving, and for a black actor, the risks were even greater. At the same time, Howard struggled with personal demons. He battled addiction, had legal troubles, and constantly found himself in the headlines for the wrong reasons. These issues made his silence even heavier because coming out publicly would have only added to the scrutiny. Rumors about his private life swirled, but Howard chose not to respond, focusing instead on his craft while living quietly with his truth. Sadly, his life was cut short in 1996 when he died at the age of 46. Only after his passing did stories confirm what many had quietly suspected. His hidden truth and early death left behind a story of both brilliance and heartbreak, showing how heavy the burden of secrecy could be for talented stars of his era. 9. Raymond Street. Jacques. Raymond Street Jacques made history as one of the first black actors to regularly appear on primetime television, breaking barriers with roles in series like Rawhide and films such as Cotton Comes to Harlem. His sophisticated presence and commanding performances helped him stand out in an industry that offered very few opportunities to black actors. Yet even with his success, Raymond carried a truth he could never reveal publicly: he was gay. At the time, Hollywood was harsh and judgmental, forcing actors to conform to strict images that appealed to audiences. Raymond built his career with a dignified and masculine image, one that would have been threatened if his sexuality became known. While whispers about his private life circulated in certain circles, he always dismissed them by staying focused on his professional achievements. To the outside world, he appeared reserved and private, a man entirely committed to his craft. But those who knew him closely understood the personal struggle he carried in silence. When Raymond died in 1990, his sexuality was never openly acknowledged in obituaries or tributes, a reflection of how deep the silence surrounding his truth went. Today, his story is remembered as one of both progress and pain. An actor who opened doors for others on screen, but felt he could not walk through life openly as himself. His hidden truth is part of the complex history of black actors in Hollywood. 8. Luther Vandross. Luther Vandross is remembered as one of the greatest soul singers of all time, but many forget he also stepped into acting with television appearances and small roles. His voice and artistry captured millions, yet his personal life was always a mystery. Throughout his career, Luther avoided discussing relationships, and when asked about marriage or family, he would skillfully change the subject. Behind the scenes, Luther was a gay man, but he chose not to come out publicly, fearing the backlash it could bring to his career. For black male entertainers, especially in music and film, the risk of being labeled outweighed the chance to live openly. Despite never confirming his sexuality, those closest to him knew his truth. Luther was deeply private, and he worried that the public knowing would overshadow his achievements and shift the focus from his voice to his personal life. His fans adored him, but the pressure of living a double life weighed heavily on him. When Luther passed away in 2005, tributes poured in celebrating his music, but his sexuality remained the subject of speculation. Only later did more voices confirm what he had hidden for decades. His choice to keep silent was not from shame, but from the brutal reality of how unforgiving the entertainment world could be. His story reflects how even the most beloved artists sometimes carried their truth quietly until the very end. 7. Moses Gunn. Moses Gunn was a powerhouse actor, known for his commanding stage presence and memorable roles in films like Shaft and Ragtime. He built a reputation as one of the finest character actors of his generation, earning respect for his deep, authoritative voice and ability to embody complex roles. To audiences, Moses seemed like a man completely at ease in his craft, yet privately, he carried a truth that he never revealed: he was gay. During his career, Hollywood had little tolerance for openly gay men, and even less so for black actors who were already fighting for recognition. Moses chose to keep his personal life away from the spotlight, speaking rarely about relationships or family. He presented himself as private and professional, carefully separating his public persona from his real identity. Those who worked closely with him admired his discipline, but they also sensed the walls he kept around his personal world. When Moses passed away in 1993, obituaries celebrated his artistry and contributions to theater and film, but his sexuality remained unspoken. The silence surrounding his truth shows how deeply the fear of exposure shaped the lives of even the most talented actors. Moses left behind a legacy of incredible performances, but also the quiet story of a man who felt he could never live fully in the open. His journey reminds us how many stars sacrificed personal freedom for professional survival. 6. Jimmy Daniels. Jimmy Daniels was a multi-talented performer who rose to prominence during the Harlem Renaissance, blending acting, singing, and cabaret in his career. He became known for his elegance and charm on stage, attracting audiences with his smooth style and polished performances. Yet, like so many other black entertainers of his time, Jimmy lived with a hidden truth. He was gay, but in the early 20th century, being open about that reality could mean the end of any professional opportunities. Instead, Jimmy crafted an image that fit the expectations of the era, presenting himself as a suave entertainer who dazzled audiences with his performances. He built friendships with influential figures in music, theater, and literature. Yet he always kept his romantic life in the shadows. Those within artistic circles quietly knew, but the wider public never heard him speak openly about who he truly was. Jimmy's life was marked by both brilliance and silence. He carved out success in a world that rarely allowed black artists to thrive, yet he did so at the cost of hiding an essential part of himself. When he died in 1984, his sexuality was left unmentioned in mainstream accounts of his career. His story reflects the harsh reality faced by earlier generations of performers who had to choose between authenticity and survival. Jimmy Daniels remains a symbol of talent restrained by the era's unforgiving attitudes. 5. Tommy Lane. Tommy Lane became a recognizable face in blaxploitation films of the 1970s and in action classics like Live and Let Die. He had a tough, street-smart persona that made him a favorite in roles requiring edge and charisma. His screen presence was undeniable, yet away from the camera, Tommy lived with a secret that never saw the light of day during his lifetime. He was gay, but he kept that part of his identity hidden to protect his career and his image. During that era, actors were often typecast, and for a black man in Hollywood, fitting the mold of strength and masculinity was crucial. Being openly gay would have clashed with the roles that kept his career alive. Tommy chose silence, presenting himself only through his work and leaving little room for questions about his personal life. Those close to him may have known, but he never discussed it in public spaces. When he died in 2021, tributes celebrated his roles as a memorable supporting actor in both film and television. However, the truth about his sexuality remained largely unknown. Hidden behind decades of careful privacy, Tommy's story adds another layer to the long list of black actors who felt the industry left them no choice but to remain silent. His legacy lives through his performances, while his personal truth stayed behind closed doors. 4. Jeffrey Holder. Jeffrey Holder was a man of many talents, an actor, dancer, choreographer, and even a painter. With his booming voice and striking presence, he became unforgettable in roles like Baron Samedi in the James Bond film Live and Let Die, and as a theatrical figure in productions such as The Wiz. Audiences admired his flamboyant style and artistic brilliance, but Jeffrey kept his personal life carefully guarded. Though celebrated for his larger-than-life persona, he was a gay man who never openly embraced that truth in public. In an industry that was both racially and socially restrictive, Jeffrey crafted an image that focused on his artistry, leaving his private world in silence. He spoke endlessly about his work, his inspirations, and his creative passions, but when it came to relationships, he remained quiet. His sexuality was not part of the public conversation, and he made sure it stayed that way. When Jeffrey passed in 2014, tributes honored his creative genius, but few ever mentioned the truth he carried privately. His life highlights the painful divide between public success and private reality. Jeffrey gave the world art, color, and performance that pushed boundaries, yet he never had the chance to live openly as himself. His hidden truth reflects the struggles of countless black performers who were celebrated for their talent but denied the freedom of authenticity. 3. Juano Hernandez. Juano Hernandez was a pioneering Afro-Puerto Rican actor who broke barriers in Hollywood during a time when black performers were often relegated to minor or stereotypical roles. His breakthrough came in 1949 with the film Intruder in the Dust, where he delivered a commanding performance that won him critical acclaim. Throughout his career, Juano appeared in both Hollywood and international films, earning respect for his dignified portrayals and undeniable screen presence. Yet, while his professional life brought him recognition, his personal life remained deliberately hidden. Juano was a gay man, but he never publicly acknowledged his sexuality. During the mid-20th century, being openly gay was career suicide, and for a black actor already fighting racial prejudice, the risks were even greater. Juano chose silence, presenting himself as entirely focused on his craft and avoiding personal questions in interviews. His private relationships were never discussed in public, and he carefully maintained an image of privacy that protected him but also kept his true self in the shadows. When Juano died in 1970, obituaries praised his groundbreaking career but made no mention of his sexuality. His story reflects the painful reality faced by many black performers of his era who carried their truth quietly until the very end. Juano Hernandez remains a symbol of talent and perseverance, but also of the sacrifices demanded by an unforgiving industry. 2. Bayard Rustin. Bayard Rustin is remembered primarily as a civil rights leader and strategist behind the 1963 March on Washington, but he was also a performer and actor during his lifetime. His passion for theater and music gave him a presence beyond politics, yet his sexuality remained one of the most carefully hidden parts of his identity. Bayard was a gay man at a time when being both black and gay brought enormous challenges, not only in Hollywood, but in every public sphere he entered. As he pursued both activism and performance, Bayard understood the stakes of openness. Admitting the truth would not only harm his career, but also weaken the causes he supported, as opponents often attacked his personal life to discredit his work. To protect himself and the movements he served, he kept his sexuality private, never addressing it publicly. Even though friends and allies were aware, Bayard never made it a matter for public conversation. His artistry and activism defined how he was seen, while his personal reality remained in silence. When he died in 1987, the world celebrated his contributions, but left untouched the truth he carried privately. His story shows how many black performers and public figures were forced to choose between their truth and survival. Bayard Rustin left an extraordinary impact, but he also lived a life where authenticity had to be hidden until after death. 1. Alvin Ailey. Alvin Ailey is celebrated around the world as the legendary choreographer and founder of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. But what many forget is that he also worked as an actor early in his career. His performances, both on stage and in film, reflected a deep emotional power that came from his lived experiences. Yet, despite his brilliance, Alvin lived with a truth that he never openly shared: he was a gay man. In mid-20th century America, being openly gay could bring devastating consequences, especially for a black artist already facing barriers of racism and limited opportunity. Throughout his career, Alvin avoided speaking about his relationships, instead focusing entirely on his art. He poured his emotions into dance and performance, creating works that captured themes of identity, struggle, and resilience. Many believe his hidden personal life fueled the intensity of his creativity, but it also brought him immense loneliness. He carried the weight of secrecy while giving the world unforgettable beauty through movement. When Alvin died in 1989, his sexuality was not widely discussed, and obituaries focused only on his artistic achievements. Only later did accounts reveal the truth he kept hidden. His story is one of brilliance shadowed by silence, a reminder of how even icons who changed culture could not escape the pressures of hiding who they truly were. Alvin Ailey's legacy lives on through his art, though his authentic self remained concealed until after his passing. These stories remind us that Hollywood's bright lights often cast long shadows. 11 incredible black actors gave the world unforgettable performances, yet each carried the heavy burden of silence about who they truly were. The question now is, how many more untold stories are still out there, waiting to be uncovered? If you found these hidden truths eye-opening, don't let the conversation end here. Hit that subscribe button, share this video, and join us as we reveal more untold Hollywood stories that the world tried to keep in the dark.